Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guests today are Nina Albert, the Commissioner of the Public Building Service for GSA, Ryan Dorfler, Senior Workplace Strategist at the Center for Workplace Strategy at GSA, and Chuck Hardy, Chief Architect at GSA. Everyone, thanks for taking the time to speak with me. I think this is a really fascinating topic, the future workplace for the federal workforce. And I think a great place to get the conversation started here would just be unpacking a little bit of something we've already heard, Workplace 2030, something that's very much minded about the future of the workplace. So just tell me in broad terms what it is and how this concept got started.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that. Back when at the height of the pandemic in the fall of 2020, we knew that our workplaces would never be the same again. Federal agencies, of course, found ways to broaden implementation of telework policies so their missions could continue. And we know from research conducted by the Office of Personnel Management that the portion of federal employees eligible for telework increased from 39% in fiscal year 2019 to 50% in fiscal year 20. We also know from that research that 90% of those eligible employees that participated in their agency's telework program. The net effect of this was over 1 million federal employees accomplished their agency's mission remotely, either at home or other remote location, all at the same time. Workplace 2030 emerged out of this shared experience. And what we did, GSA, was bring together 120 workplace and real estate experts from 18 federal agencies to identify and better understand our common experience, if you will. Specifically, we want to understand how did their organizations accomplish the shift to greater levels of remote work? What helped them to accomplish that, and what got in the way? What impediments did they encounter? And what do they foresee the future of the federal workplace being? Workplace 2030 is GSA's effort to build on this shared experience, to imagine how the future workplace should evolve, to ultimately better support federal agencies and their employees. Now, from the discussions that we held with those federal agency workplace leaders, as well as private sector experts in the area as well, some common themes emerged. First, work can be done anywhere and at any time. Real estate will help us maintain and enhance human connections, and technology will be the primary force that brings work together. The other thing that we heard was distributed work benefits both the employee and the organization. From the employee perspective, working from home, of course, affords scheduling flexibility, increased opportunities to improve a work-life balance, and cost and time savings, such as from not commuting, for instance. From the organization perspective, allowing employees to significantly telework can be a powerful tool for retaining existing talent and attracting new talent into their organization. Another thing that we heard in this Workplace 2030 research was the office is necessary, but its purpose is shifting, in large part depending on to the degree of hybrid work that an organization adopts. The office won't go away, it will just change. The office will remain a critical place to collaborate, maintain connections, and access secure resources. It will also continue serving as the primary workplace for those federal employees who can't or choose not to work from home. Another thing that we heard is that agencies are increasingly willing to share space and explore opportunities in that area. Sharing resources among agencies will create, of course, cost savings, and what that may be reinvested into their missions. And we're not talking about just administrative office space. There's also interest in investigating the potential for sharing mission support or special spaces, if you will. Ultimately, the biggest thing that we heard, and this is probably the most important one, is that implementation will differ for each agency. For some agencies, on-site work will certainly become essential or an essential part of their mission. But others may move to a more distributed model, redirecting real estate costs towards technology and services that empower your workforce. So it's from these common themes, distributed work, shared space, customized implementation, that we learned from the Workplace 2030 research. And those are the foundation for the new Workplace 2030 services that are being developed and offered by GSA to federal agencies.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Ryan. And One line that you said there really sticks out to me, that the office is necessary, but its purpose is shifting. I think that's kind of the foundation for this conversation.
Yeah.
And, I think you really unpacked a lot of the feedback that you got from agencies as part of the research that led to some of the findings of Workplace 2030. In terms of some of those pandemic lessons learned, of course, telework is now just second nature to so much of the federal workforce. Are there other lessons learned from the pandemic that influence the future of federal workplaces? One thing that comes to mind for me, at least, is that, for a while, at least, we saw, open offices being a thing. And now, of course, for a lot of office reentry plans, barriers of some nature, are part of that, robust HVAC systems, things like that. Any considerations there that are worth unpacking?
I think the most important consideration as agencies think about and consider different workplace strategies, or consider is it making sure that whatever approaches they want to adopt is really grounded on, I like to say, a keen understanding of how that workplace change can support the accomplishment of their mission and create an environment where their employees can thrive. And depending on the amount of hybrid work that the organization allows their employees to adopt, what ends up happening is that technology ends up becoming almost as important as space, even more so, the more telework that's being accomplished. So as organizations think about, or leaders, federal agency leaders think about what the federal future of the federal workplace can be, one of the most important considerations is not just to focus on space, but to understand the connections between space, technology, their work processes, organization culture. All of that come together to create an effective workplace, no matter what it is. And that's something we really enjoy unpacking, if you will, with our client agencies through our workplace engagement services, and I could go on and on about that. But essentially, that's the approach we take: is looking at all those different factors and identifying the unique mix of workplace approaches that would be right for them.
May I also jump in with a couple things, Jory? Some of the things that we've learned about, from the pandemic is not only how many people have, were thrown into the world of remote work, but also how many folks continued to have to occupy office space or facilities throughout the pandemic. So the federal government's quite large, and there's a whole variety of different needs that people have. In the cases of courthouses, laboratories, law enforcement agencies, the role of the facility or in-place work becomes critically important. It's in the area of general office space that we see the opportunity to lean into a more hybridized or flexible workplace. So when I think about kind of the breadth of facility needs and what we think the future of the workplace has to include, I like to boil it down to some common design principles that every facility, regardless of the space type that it is or the mission that it serves, has to include. So I start with where Ryan left off, which is every facility, whether you're a lab or a land port of entry or a headquarters building, has to be technology enabled. That means that as technology evolves, the building has to be able to accommodate those technology upgrades and changes and not at a tremendously high cost of infrastructure replacement. So the ability to accommodate technology changes has to be what we incorporate into all of our buildings. You had also mentioned that healthy HVAC or heating, ventilation, air conditioning system. That is one aspect of a healthy building. There's many other aspects to healthy buildings that people who design workplaces are very attuned to, such as natural daylight, for example, that contributes directly to employee productivity. So I talk about the building of the future being a healthy and sustainable building. Because our employees today want that to know that the building that they're going into is healthy, particularly in a post-pandemic world. But future generations are going to demand and want to know that the building that they're occupying is going to be climate resistant or resilient. It's going to be highly efficient, and it's going to have access to natural daylight. And then the last thing that I'll say is we are seeing greater need in all workplaces for physical security and cybersecurity. And so that's another underlying common design principle that the future workplace will have. So in addition to flexibility, particularly in the general office space, I think those other elements are what we now define as the future workplace and what we should be incorporating into every future federal facility.
To go back to the hybrid workforce idea of things that, for some employees, they're going to be coming into the office some days or no days, or, really depends on the agency. Something we've seen as part of that is, the office hoteling that, you reserve a desk ahead of time and you come in the days that you want to or need to, and the other days you're working remotely. Just tell me how prevalent we're seeing that play out at GSA buildings and how that serves as a foundation for the hybrid workforce going forward.
Well, I can start and then I'll hand it off to either Chuck or Ryan. I think that you set the stage really well. When we talk about hybrid work, it's kind of along two different planes. One is at the individual level. So I could have a hybrid work schedule. Some days I'm in the office, some days I'm working from home. And then you can also have a hybridized workforce at the organizational level, where maybe some teams are in the office certain days and other teams are not. That set of arrangements allows for a lot more flexibility and less dedicated workspace like there used to be. And so we have a number of different models that we're incorporating. There will always be need for office space, or what we are now calling focus rooms. So maybe they're no longer dedicated offices, but they are office spaces because somebody, when they're in the building, may in fact need to do heads down work and concentrate. So that will continue to be needed. The individual workstation will continue to be needed in an open environment, because when teams are together, you want to encourage that crosstalk or, that teamwork, and that open office environment is very supportive of that. But where we're seeing kind of new models or increased demand is around collaboration space. So different types of collaboration, not just the conference room where everyone's sitting around a table. Now you have to have different size conference rooms that incorporate the conference technology, so you can have a hybrid meeting. That room is going to be configured differently. You also are going to want to include what I call collision spaces, where people can, because you might not know who's in the building anymore because there's not that regular schedule. So you want to create spaces where people can come together and naturally, run into each other. But all of this, the way to really make it work seamlessly, what I call a frictionless workplace of the future, is that technology backbone has to be in place. And so when you are sharing space, you have to also introduce and account for some predictability so that the worker, when they're coming to the office, knows where they're going to go, knows where other people are. And so that technology to reserve space, to see where other folks are so that you can naturally gravitate or go find them. That is all enabled by technology. But let me ask Chuck or Ryan if you want to expound at all.
Yeah, I can just tag on that. The workspace is meant to connect, and that's that they're in service of the employees, and we need to evolve it as well if we're going to remain relevant. And so as we look at hybrid work, that's one more tool in the toolkit that we have now. And how does that come together? When you talk about open office of a decade ago, when that was coming, the pendulum swung a little bit too much toward all open office. And then halfway through that, I came back and said, well, we need some collaboration space. And then people started thinking a little bit better and saying, well, when I come into the office, I'm not going to be in a meeting all day. I still have to go someplace else. And so what does that look like? And so we're continuing to evolve our understanding of what ratios and types of spaces we have. So it's away from the one size fits all. Here's your cubicle, make everything work within that. And here's your office, your conference room, make everything work within that. But a variety of spaces, a variety of environments that empower the employee in kind of a curated choice to find the best location to do the best work they can within the office when they go there. That means the availability of it. That means being nimble enough to adjust ratios. If we start seeing that more people are using this than that, we need to provide more of this kind of thing and less of that. So all those kind of things start to change the management of workspace in a much more proactive way, focused on the employee wellness and the mission.
I'd like to go ahead and add something as well. Another consideration is, of course, organization, how prepared the organization is in adopting a desk sharing approach or strategy. GSA, fortunately, prior to the pandemic, we've already, many employees already participate in desk sharing programs, telework from home. There was mobility, employee mobility was encouraged. We had the technology that allowed us to do work from home just as effectively as in the office. And then when the pandemic happened and we had, of course, everyone had to work from home full time, the transition wasn't as huge for many folks. And as we come back to the office and return back to the office increasingly, now organizationally, we're ready for that as far as increasingly providing choice, allowing different levels of hybrid work, creating facilities that allow for hybrid meetings, and taking those into account. For those organizations that are contemplating increased desk sharing approaches, my advice is to not forget about preparing the organization for the change, be it either a focused change management effort or just getting a deeper understanding of how the shift and changes in work will impact how work practices, how work is accomplished, and how it can benefit from the employees as well.
Something I'm taking away from this conversation, and something that is very much a part of other future of federal work type conversations, is just giving employees more options than ever. Teleworking, being in the office, having these variety of options in the office in terms of workspaces. One thing that I've heard a little bit about with Workplace 2030 is the home office in a box that is kind of I guess standardizing what the gear that employees have if they're working out of their homes. Can you give me a little bit more of how that program works?
Of course. Home office in a box has been rebranded Home Office Solutions to round things out. And essentially, it's an additional service that GSA is creating that will help federal agencies provision their employees who may be working from home with furniture and technology. The user experience that the average federal employee will see is that they would be able to go to GSA Advantage, go to a virtual shopping aisle, and see the furniture or technology that has been authorized by that agency that employee can select from. After that, certain processes kick into gear where it would be approved by the federal agencies, let's say personal property official or their manager, and then the furniture and technology is delivered from there. What it's intended to do is a phrase that Nina brought up earlier about workspace, but frictionless. It's meant to remove those impediments. One more, if there's an impediment, as far as helping federal agencies empower their employees to work effectively from home in this instance. And it's just one of more than a few services that have come out of the research from those Workplace 2030 discussions in the fall of 2020.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Ryan. And one other element of Workplace 2030 that we've heard some talk about is the telecommuting spaces, kind of the office away from the office. It's not in the home. It's not at your duty station, but it's somewhere else. And I'm curious, how that came to be and what the thinking is behind that.
The thinking behind it came to be essentially we recognize that as employees become more mobile, there will be situations where if a federal employee is out in the field, let's say away from their home office or away from their home, which may be their home office, they may need a place to go to, and like an office setting, maybe a desk to sit down at, a workstation, or a private office to sit at temporarily for, let's say, a few hours, maybe a day or two, where they're out in this location. And these office settings would have everything you would come to expect from a typical administrative office type setting: copiers, Wi-Fi, those kinds of things. And the idea is that this would be a service that's available to any federal agency. And what they can do is authorize one or more than a few of their federal employees through us to basically reserve a space at these space as a service or co-working type locations. GSA has contracts with 5 space as a service providers, and the federal agency would come to us and ask, well, I need a spot for this employee in this location, and using our flexible co-working services, that's the name of that service, we would reach out to these private sector partners and identify a location for them. And this is anywhere in the continental US. We do have a federal version of that's in development, and it's called FlexHub. Pretty much exactly the same business model, if you will. The use case is for those federal agencies that need a different employees that need a different location to work for a short period of time. It would still be space as a service, where GSA would be the co-working provider. The locations would be in our federal buildings. And it would be basically, we would be as I mentioned, the provider of that service. A few of the benefits that are involved in this, that come with this, is one, it allows federal agencies to have their employees work in federal buildings, right, in a more secured environment, versus if it was through flexible co-working services, it might be at a location where that vendor may be allowing other individuals to work there also. The other thing it does is it creates tremendous opportunity for increasing the efficiency of the federal real estate portfolio, but really exploring that shared space concept that federal agency leaders indicated they were interested in. And not just commercial office type settings or administrative office type setting, but also there's some potential there for such as mission critical or special purpose space. And that Flex Hub, as we're calling it, the flexible co-working services, is part of, the first one is part of another effort that we're doing called the Workplace Innovation Lab. And that is essentially, it allows federal agency leaders and employees to experience new furniture, new technology that the industry is providing to support hybrid work. And they can also reserve a spot in that as well through our federal co-working services. And that's really what the intent is, to provide choice and create more choices for federal agency leaders and their employees to pick from as far as where they want to accomplish their work.
I can add just a little bit more to that. Is one thing we're looking at is again, increase the tools available to agencies and employees to get their work done. And when we look at past practices of design, we've designed for the maximum day use of any operation, and that could only be one day a week, a month kind of thing. And what we're trying to do is find ways to accommodate the surges in operations, but not have to build for that surge for 365 days a year. And so when we look at the options of co-working, whether it's private sector or federally owned, that starts to fill that new gap and creates a whole new planning logic around how we provide space for our customers and the opportunities for customers to make sure that they have the best space at the best price and the best location when needed.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Chuck. And to actually pull on a thread that Ryan, you were talking about GSA as the co-working provider in some instances. I think worth mentioning there is that GSA is able to do that because they did a really great job of space utilization, bringing more employees into 1800F, pre-pandemic, before it was cool, really getting a better understanding of, what space they have, what space employees need, and consolidating where it made sense. Now that we are in a different phase of things, that there are some lessons learned from COVID that agencies are coming around to, are there, best practices from this GSA use case that, maybe other employees can learn from?
Yeah, I think the most important one is, as a federal agency leader or organization is contemplating a workplace change, maybe it's something that GSA has done before, or maybe it's something different, is to really not focus just on the space aspect of it. One phrase we like to use, or I like to personally use, is essentially that there's no one size fits all solution. I think it's easy for individuals for someone to say, oh, I've seen this other organization or company or this tech company's done this approach. Maybe this is the right approach for us. And I would caution against taking that, going that route without really looking at it with a bit more critical eye and thinking, it's like, is it really going to help my organization succeed? Is it going to help my peers or my employees really thrive, as a phrase I like to use, as far as accomplishing the mission? It may or it may not. So my advice to agency leaders that are contemplating a workplace change, either the design of their space or changing the amount of telework their employees can adopt, or looking at a more distributed organization model, for instance, is make sure those decisions are grounded on, will that help the agency accomplish their mission? And is it supportive, and does it really help those employees accomplish their work, what it is now and what it may be in the future? And so GSA, as you can imagine, has services that help federal agencies go through that exploration and essentially co-create what the new workplaces could be for their location or across their portfolio. So the big takeaway is, don't focus just on space. Think about technology, organization, culture, all of that other stuff, and how they intersect together.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Let's look at the technology piece of things. Let's really zero down there, because obviously telework is a huge component of everything that we're talking about. The abundance of video conference platforms, case in point, we're having this conversation over one of them. What are some other tools or technologies that are part and parcel to Workplace 2030 and more broadly this reimagining of federal work?
The future of work is rapidly changing, which means we're constantly learning. For example, when we collaborate with industry and academia, we're all in agreement that lighting and acoustics are important in the workplace. We can infuse those learnings into the services we provide and the recommendations we're offering to our clients. And this nimbleness means we're able to quickly adjust our services and evolve to be more timely and responsive to the agency's needs and demands. I'd like to talk a little bit about the trends like lighting benefits employees. Think things like properly addressing circadian rhythms and acoustics. The workforce also wants healthy office spaces with good ventilations, as we previously mentioned, that are flexible in design, also support collaboration. So I think organizations and industries are going to need to have conversations about the evolution of conference room and collaboration technology as well. When you think back when the pandemic first started, the quick evolution of technology to connect with the demands of the employees, and I think that's going to continue to go. And we as owners and employees need to let the technologists know what things we need, and they'll solve that. Data about employees is another thing, and by that I mean addressing work patterns or activity-based design, as well as telework agreements are in place, environmental preferences, productivity metrics, all those things related to mission. And we need technology to help provide that anonymized utilization data in real time, so we can address the needs in real time in service of the employee. the communication infrastructure is key in the office and at home, and we know it's essential, and we need broadband access to enable that mobility. If we don't have that, it falls flat right away. And then technology needs to both, and you've heard this term before, frictionless or simple to use, but it also needs to be seamless, meaning no disruption in the meeting or service, like you are having a conversation as you would face to face. And finally, we need to improve the experience of our spaces and curate that activity through our building management systems and other means to not only maximize the energy, but to elevate the employee experience. So as you can see through this, the technology and the tools we have are all going to evolve and need to focus on the employee experience and enabling the employee to do their best.
Jory, if I may just add or to the conversation, technology is really one of the key strategy questions that any leader or agency has to wrestle with, because technology can help improve an agency's mission delivery, meaning just the operational efficiency, of various work that is going on. Also, customer service. What we saw in the pandemic was that, for example, a lot of public-facing activities that would have taken place in person transitioned to taking place virtually. And that had great benefit to customers. For example, they could set up appointments now and meet with an agent of any type virtually. And there's a lot of benefit to that, from a customer service delivery. In that, we also learned that there are a number of systems and forms that if they weren't digitized prior to the pandemic, it became challenging for people to conduct their work virtually. And so technology can help remove some of those barriers to faster delivery, to data availability, to information availability, when we can transition from paper reliant work to more digitally enabled work. And then what we're talking about, those are all the ways that technology can improve an agency's mission delivery, can improve the delivery of customer service. And then what we've really been talking about today is how can technology improve the employee experience when they're in the office. And it's not just teleconference room technology. What we're looking at is how can technology help our buildings become smart so that we can manage the things that people experience physically, the comfort level, because temperature is at the right temperature. Or as Chuck was saying, there's activity-based. You can see, for example, where other people are using the building. And if you want to connect with people, you can go and move to those parts of the building where, folks are concentrated. I think we really have to rethink how technology is impacting our entire workplace. And that's a very daunting but exciting opportunity that as leaders, as strategists, we have to lean into.
The great thing is that GSA is kind of the hub for all of these things. It's a one-stop shop for the real estate, the technology, the customer experience side of things over with the president's management agenda. So great that we're weaving together all those elements here. To circle back to the Workplace Innovation Lab side of things, I want to learn a little bit more about that, how that functionally works, and how agencies can go in and kind of, I guess, kick the tires on some technology and some furniture and a little bit of everything that they might want to adopt in their workplaces.
Yeah, the Workplace Innovation Lab, I believe the ribbon cutting is going to be in about 2 months or so. Essentially what it is it's very much that. It allows federal agencies, it'll be at our headquarters building, and it'll allow any interested federal agency to come in and see the latest in furniture and technology in the workplace. They can walk through it. So if an agency leader is thinking about undergoing a workplace change for their office or for another location, and they want to see what's out there as far as cutting edge, if you will, they can see it. A great part of this Workplace Innovation Lab is that also federal employees can experience it. So the plan is that they will be able to reserve a spot, a seat, just like space as a service, as if we're or co-working service model. And then they can try it out before, and then they can say, okay, I like this aspect of the furniture, or maybe this new technology that allows me to do video conferencing different than, let's say, a camera on a laptop screen. The employee gets employee feedback, and they could say, okay, this is great, this is really working for me as far as how I do my work. There's other building technology that's also being integrated into it as well, that's allowing us to test it out. The furniture, as far as we're entering into bailment agreements, I believe, with 5 firms. I'm gonna kick it over to Chuck to to provide a little bit more details. I think he has more of those, but the intent is that certainly that any federal agency will be able to see and experience the latest in furniture and technology.
Yeah, and just to add to that is we do have multiple firms providing furniture and technology to the space, providing their latest products. And the idea here is kind of that partnership with industry. So we want to provide feedback to them of what's working, what's not, where can they move their product as they evolve their products as well. So we're looking at not only connecting other agencies into what the latest products are out there, what the latest thought is on workplace design, but also to evolve the development of that design in ways that favor our needs. And so we're trying to make sure that we keep that conversation going. And it'll be everything from how we can book space across government with a potentially singular app, to come in there and stay for a day or a month and really experience the space and say, this is working for me, or if you did this, this might work a little bit better. So it's a learning kind of tool that we're using. And in this day and age where we're coming out into a new world where we don't have a lot of analytics, it's really great to show somebody product that they can kick the tires on, say this, oh, that's what you mean. This works great, or oh, this isn't going to work for us. And that's really what this is meant to do, is to start a dialogue, to co-create a solution to get them where they need to be.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for shedding some more light on the lab and what we can expect from that. We had said, and thinking in many different ways here, how GSA is trying to make all of this frictionless going forward. But of course, Ryan, as you said earlier, with like the change management side of things, there will be, some barriers to overcome, some things to work out. Can you maybe understand, or can you maybe help me better understand what some of those pain points might be, and, how GSA is going to help agencies overcome them?
From the pain point perspective, it really depends on the agency, the context of that specific organization, and the type of change they're going through or they're contemplating in the future. Prior to the pandemic, when the word hybrid wasn't as common as it is today, some of the more dramatic changes might be an organization that's their employees are primarily in offices, and that organization may be thinking, or the leaders may be thinking about, well, we're going to move everyone in an office into a workstation instead, as well as add on some desk sharing on top of it. From the employee perspective, that could be a very big change, and not necessarily good or bad. It could be a very big change. It's important for, like, pre-pandemic, where those leaders would say, okay, we're going to help the employees understand the purpose behind the change. Why is it happening? What tools or services or support can be provided to, not to overuse the term, make the change frictionless. And it's the services or the strategies that are used is very specific to the culture of that organization, and of course the change that's happening. Now, as employees are increasingly telework, hybrid working, hybrid meetings, all of that adds a bit more complexity to the discussion, because we're no longer talking about a single state going from one type of approach to another. what we're doing is we're also factoring in choice and changes in those choices. And so, for instance, if an employee or a person is, let's say they work from home more than 3 days a week, and they need to go into the office, just, the balance of that, 2 days a week or even less than that. Well, for those individuals, their home office is now their primary office. And what used to be their home office is now a destination, a secondary location, if you will, a destination to accomplish very specific activities. Maybe it's meeting with peers. Maybe it's working on a specific task and they need to do it in specially controlled space. Maybe they're going in just simply to reconnect. And it's those motivations, if you will, is why, if an employee has a choice, why do they want to come into the office? The implications on work practices, changes in the organizational culture. Change management is about identifying what those shifts could be or would be, and developing strategies around that. And so the way that we help federal agencies or collaborate with them is probably a better word, is what we do is first identify those drivers, really understand that context that's unique to that specific location or organization going through the change, understand through things like employee staff surveys, focus groups, interviews with leadership, something called a visioning session that we have with leadership, which is essentially a focus group to identify what the vision should be for the workplace and how it supports the mission. And we use all of that diagnosing what's happening, understanding what could happen, to identify strategies that our clients could hopefully implement to make any transitions better. So that's pretty much the approach that we take, and some of the ways that we help client agencies, other federal agencies who are interested in that service.
And one thing on change is, there's an old saying, people don't mind change, they just don't like being changed. And what that points to is we've got to listen. We got to seek first to understand what problem it is we're trying to solve. And that's what we're in business for. And that's what GSA does, is find out workspace solutions for our customers. And so as we listen to those customers and manage that change, which is happening at a much more robust pace than in the past, in much more uncertain ways, that's where we need to get ahead of this and let the employees know, let the agencies know, let everyone know that we're listening, we're hearing that, and we're bringing to bear solutions to it. And that helps get participation in the solutions that we co-create with our agency partners, with the ideas and innovations that we come up with. That feedback loop is so crucial as we kind of connect and evolve the solutions we provide.
Okay, great. Well, I see we're getting close to time here, so I'll give everyone an opportunity to give us some closing thoughts, or, I'll generally kind of tee it up as future looking, what to expect in the years to come here. But anything you guys want to leave with our audience, please. Let's just go around here. Ryan, let's start with you, and we'll go around and make sure everyone has an opportunity to give us some final words here.
Yeah, thank you. The final words that I have is for everyone is, and something that I advise our clients as well, is that the workplace is evolving. Hybrid work, where individuals accomplish their work, how they do it, is still changing, and will likely continue to change. And for those organizations that are contemplating adopting those changes as far as their normal way of working, don't forget that when it comes to a workplace, an effective workplace, it's much more about space. It's technology, organizational culture, and all of that together needs to be considered.
Okay, great. And Chuck, over to you.
Sure. I mean, our commitment to agencies and their workforce is that when workers come in, they're going to find office spaces that are safe, healthy, empowering, everything that you want a workspace to be. And to ensure that, we need to work with Congress to invest in those buildings. As the president's proposed in his 23 budget, we need to work with our clients to find out what solutions and what issues they're trying to solve and help solve them, and ultimately be in service of of the employees and the taxpayer, and from an employee standpoint, reiterate and put value on that value of the commute. Why should they be coming to the office, which they will need to do, and where that value is. Thanks.
All right, Nina, you get the final word here.
Wonderful. Well, I'll just wrap up by saying that at GSA, we've been able to evolve over the years since our inception in 1949 to meet the needs of federal agencies. You had an opportunity today to meet Chuck and to meet Ryan. They are our leaders for a Center of Workplace Strategies that is designed to directly support agencies in evaluating their workspace needs. We also have access to more than 15 designers and real estate advisors who can help agencies think through their technology, their real estate strategy, and their workplace needs. So we encourage people to reach out to Chuck and to Ryan and get access to either the contractors or to work with our team directly. My closing remarks are really about what this opportunity is. I think we have a tremendous opportunity to harness this moment and rethink how we deliver the government mission, how we better serve the American public who are our customers, and how we support and engage our employees in one of the richest experiences that they can have. So GSA's vision for what future work looks like in the workplace is that the workplace is flexible, it's healthy, it's sustainable, and the underpinnings of all federal facilities are technology enabled and secure. I always like to focus on what the opportunity is to save the American public money. Real estate can be a very costly endeavor. It's an important one. It's a necessary one, but we have the opportunity to optimize the federal footprint itself. And we do this by strategically locating the network of federal workplaces. We invest in climate resilience and high-performing green buildings. That saves the government money. And then through consolidation activities, we can further reduce the footprint and save the government money. It does take money to save money. And so that's what we want to work with agencies on, but it is worth it. So I'll just close by saying that the future of work is now. People are working in this hybridized environment, and we need to harness the lessons that we've learned. And when I define what the future is, I come back to this underlying premise and question, which is, how does a technology-enabled future improve the government's ability to deliver its mission, to serve its customers, and improve the employee experience?
All right, a strong note to end on there. I'd like to thank today's guests, Nina Albert, the Commissioner of the Public Building Service for GSA, Ryan Dorfler, Senior Workplace Strategist at the Center for Workplace Strategy at GSA, and Chuck Hardy, Chief Architect at GSA. I'm your moderator, Jory Heckman, and you're watching Workplace Reimagined on Federal News Network.